Now that she's 63 years old, Susan Boyle is prepared to reveal all about her extraordinary journey. Having won our hearts as a shy singer on Britain's Got Talent, she is now sharing the raw details of her life's ups and downs. An inspiring and gripping roller coaster of a life, Susan's narrative takes us on a wild ride from stardom to tragedy. Prepare to learn the truth about what happened and how it altered her life irrevocably. The early years and difficulties of Susan Boyle. Susan came into this world in a tiny Scottish village named Blackburn on April 1, 1961. There were a lot of siblings in Susan's family, and everyone knew one other. Being the youngest made her feel unique and special. Sue has always had a deep and abiding love for music. Singing songs all throughout the house would make her family very happy. Regardless, she did not always have a life filled with pleasure like her songs. It was believed that Susan would have learning disabilities from the moment she was born. Because of this, she had to work more than other kids her age on things like school. In class, Susan experienced some nasty treatment from these students. They made fun of her and teased her because she was different. Susan felt lonely and dejected as a result of the cruel females. Since she had no idea why they were being so disrespectful to her, it hurt like hell. Her self-esteem plummeted because she always felt out of place. Despite all that happened, Susan was supported by her loving family, especially her mother. Because of her immense affection for Susan, her mother never stopped assuring her that she was unique. They formed a close relationship. Susan held up hope because her mother had faith in her, despite the fact that others didn't. No matter how bad things got, her mother was there to tell her to keep going and give her encouragement. Susan would be the confidant for her mother if she was sad or felt unloved. At home, Sue felt secure. The fact that she came from a musical family meant that everyone knew she had a great voice. Because singing brought her such pleasure and liberation, she began to use music as an outlet for the bad things happening at the institution. She took comfort in music and hoped to be a professional singer someday, even if it seemed like a distant ambition. Things were yet more challenging while she was not at home. To Susan, it seemed like no one ever paid any attention to her. Many people failed to consider her because of her academic struggles and the way she was handled. Unbeknownst to them, she had exceptional talent and competence. Sue thought no one cared and that her goals would remain unfulfilled. She began to feel terrible about herself as a result of the frequent disregard she received. She was really upset by being misunderstood, especially when all she wanted was to be recognized for her own self. Despite this, her love of music remained constant. Despite the lack of audience, she proceeded to sing. She had faith that someone would recognize her special talent when they heard her voice. Through thick and thin, Susan's bond with her mother was a rock. Faith, a beacon of hope in the darkest of circumstances, kept Susan's mother going toward her dreams. She had no idea that the turning point in her life was about to happen. Despite the hardships she endured as a young woman, Susan's determination and love of singing eventually took her to a stage where her extraordinary voice could be heard by everyone. The life-changing audition. Susan Boyle's life was turned upside down on a pivotal day in 2009. She took a fairly daring step by auditioning for Britain's Got Talent. People showed off their abilities in a variety of fields during this famous game, including singing, dancing, magic, and more. For as long as she could remember, Susan had dreamed of becoming a singer. Preparing for the exam was still challenging. Susan was afraid. Because of what she had been through, she experienced moments of self-doubt. What if, for example, her singing technique was criticized? Just as her mother always believed her, what if they didn't? Susie held these beliefs even though she knew this may be her big chance to show the world how brilliant she was. She mustered all the bravery to behave like she thought her mother would want her to. In front of a huge audience and 3 distinguished judges, Susan stepped down from the platform on the audition day. The focus of the whole room was on her countenance. On a grand platform, she did not seem to be the kind of person one would anticipate. A small number of people in the crowd whispered or chuckled between themselves. They ignored her since they didn't know who she was. Even the judges were doubtful, as if they weren't sure Susan would really shock them. Susie was still rather tall. The singer told the judges that she will be singing I Dreamed a Dream from the musical Les Miserables. As soon as the music started, she parted her lips and started singing. Her voice then had a miraculous transformation, becoming more beautiful, powerful, and emotionally charged. Incredulous onlookers who had been laughing before now sat there with their jaws dropped open. The audience was taken aback by Susan's extraordinary performance, since no one had anticipated such a stellar showing. The audience became increasingly engrossed as the music continued. As shouts and applause broke out, the judges looked surprised. The whole audience was up and cheering at the conclusion of the song. Even the judges were laughing and cheering. According to one of them, it was the show's most surprising surprise to yet. After years of rejection and neglect, Susan suddenly found herself in the spotlight because to her incredible singing talent. In Susan's words, this had been a lifelong goal come true. She had always been confident in herself and her skills, but now everyone saw how remarkable she was. She felt an overwhelming sense of happiness after her performance. Her efforts have paid off. I was able to let go of the years of isolation, confusion, and unworthiness that had contributed to my low self-esteem. She could now be heard as well. Finally, Susan Boyle was acknowledged as a true celebrity. After seeing that show, her life changed drastically. Everyone around the globe, not just in the UK, watched Susan's audition with great interest. Her video became viral, with millions of views, and people spoke about her voice and movie all over the internet. At this point, people often mentioned how much they wanted to meet her and begged her to play at big events. A lot of new knowledge had to sink in for Susan. Despite her excitement, she felt immense pressure. Thinking back on that time gave Susan a feeling of accomplishment. A lot of bad things happened to her, but it didn't stop her from pursuing her dreams. She, along with the other contestants on Britain's Got Talent, realized that one day, all aspirations may come true. It was decided that her life would be drastically changed from then on. Despite widespread disbelief, she had the guts to follow her heart and become one of the world's most famous singers. Many famous people have a lot of pressure. Just like everyone else, Susan felt driven to keep aiming high. Nonetheless, she began to feel exhausted from the constant scrutiny and pressure. Uncertainty plagued Susan as she attempted to adapt to her new star life. On occasion, she felt nervous and uncomfortable due to her many responsibilities. Sue has been forthright about her struggles with mental illness and the challenges of her brief stints in the limelight. After leading a peaceful life in Scotland, she abruptly joined a world filled with cameras and interviews, which had a negative impact on her health. Her fame was too much for her mental health, and she had periods of mental exhaustion. She felt the attention to be too much at times, and sometimes wished she could escape it. Because she was always being watched, she had a hard time having privacy and just being herself. In spite of everything, Susan kept on. Even in her private life, she had a hard time adjusting to the limelight and maintaining the comfort of her previous life. Susan overcame the challenges of fame because to her love of music and will to keep going. Hidden obstacles in health and personal life. A big statement that Susan Boyle made in 2013 provided some context for the struggles she had been experiencing on a daily basis. She disclosed in her statement that she was autistic and had Asperger's syndrome. Due to this diagnosis, Susan was able to understand the situation better. It now made sense to her why she had always felt somewhat different from other people, and why things like dealing with stress and finding social gatherings had always been so difficult for her. Moreover, Susan has been honest about her relationship-long battles with worry and cynicism. She had battled anxiety, sadness, and other mental health concerns in the years leading up to her stardom. But these sentiments become something even more strong as a consequence of her meteoric climb to prominence. She stressed the need of getting help if she thought things were getting out of hand all the time, and she had to work very hard to keep her mental health under control. One of the most trying periods in Susan's life was when her mother passed away. Because Susan and her mother had such a close bond, Susan's heart is heavy with grief at her death. Her mental health deteriorated rapidly because she struggled to accept the loss. The death of Susan's mother was a watershed point in her life. Without the one person who had always been there for her, she had to find a way to go on. Since Suzanne started taking medication and going to therapy, she has had more control over her emotional and mental health. With the passage of time, she has gained the resilience to overcome adversity, and she has been open and honest with her followers about her journey. Susan has shown by being honest about her struggles with mental health that it is okay to ask for help and that you can keep going even when things become tough. She was 63 when this happened, the reveal. At 63 years old, Susan Boyle exemplifies tenacity and the significance of finding one's own path in life. Since she shot to fame thanks to her incredible performance on Britain's Got Talent, her life has taken a number of unexpected turns. Now that Susan is thinking about her future, she shares details about her current situation and the insights that have altered her perspective. In the years after her meteoric rise to fame, Susan felt both the immense pressures and the exhilarating highs of fame. Despite the adoration of millions, she struggled with feelings of isolation. This may come as a surprise to someone with Susan's massive fan base, but she claims that even famous people experience feelings of loneliness from time to time. Her admirers adored her, but the intimate relationships she sought were more elusive. The limelight can make it harder for her to form genuine connections. This realization hit her like a ton of bricks as she battled feelings of isolation in a crowded place. In order to overcome her loneliness, Susan sought therapy and talked openly about it. The more she thought about it, the more she realized that many individuals, especially those in the spotlight, have similar struggles. In making this connection with others who had been there, Susan felt less alone. Instead of being a sign of weakness, she realized that being vulnerable can bring people closer together. Encircling oneself with supportive loved ones proved crucial on her road to recovery. In addition to coping with her feelings of isolation, Susan found solace in the things that really mattered to her. Music is her first passion since it gives her refuge and comfort. She found a way to express herself and connect with her audience via songwriting and singing. Music helped Susan regain her life's purpose and passion. Instead of worrying about what other people thought, she began to focus on how much joy it brought her. The safety she sought in music allowed her to be herself without fear of judgment. The need of accepting oneself was also emphasized by Susan. With the passage of time, she came to terms with her identity, both musically and psychologically. Instead of dreading the inevitable, Susan chose to welcome aging with open arms. As she reflects on the wisdom that comes with being older, she comes to the realization that every wrinkle and gray hair tells a story. A shift in her perspective occurred when she began to value strength and inner beauty more highly than outward looks. The loss of Susan's beloved mother is only one of the many personal tragedies that have befallen her. This tragedy was a turning moment for her since it made her confront her feelings of loss and isolation. At this point in her life, she realized how important it is to respect connections and how they impact one's happiness. It was clear that her mother, who had always been her strongest advocate, was not there. Instead than letting her grief consume her, Susan used it as motivation to live a life of love and compassion in her mother's memory. With the support of her therapist, Susan learned effective methods for dealing with her emotions. She found that practicing mindfulness and meditation, two forms of self-care, helped her unwind. She was able to find harmony among the chaos of everyday life and master the complexities of her emotions with the help of these tools. Susan Boyle has taken on a new sense of purpose at the age of 63. Instead of seeking approval from others, she finds it inside herself. Living authentically and savoring the moments that matter most is what her journey has taught her to achieve true contentment. She has realized the importance of setting boundaries and prioritizing her mental health and well-being above the pressures of fame. In her reflections, Susan expresses gratitude for all of the experiences, good and bad, that have shaped her. She learned valuable lessons about love, resilience, and self-worth from every obstacle she faced. Beyond her music, her influence extends to the way she urged people to embrace their journeys with open arms, no matter how difficult they may be. Instead of being a burden, Susan views aging as a blessing. Her message is one of liberation. Follow your heart. Her perspective on life has shifted. She now sees each year as a new opportunity for growth, learning, and experience. Every person has a story to tell, and our past impacts us in ways we can't always fathom, according to her. Susan Boyle continues to sing as she moves forward, sharing her story with the globe, but she does it with an acceptance and calmness that she has worked hard to achieve. At 63 years old, her revelations reflect a journey of recovery, coming into one's own, and appreciating life for all its complexities. Authenticity and the complexities of our life are what make us beautiful, as Susan points out, especially in a world that is all too focused on youth and perfection. A balance between her public and private personalities is something she has achieved, seeing that both are important to her. She also inspires a lot of people to be themselves, find community through vulnerability, and follow life's path, whatever that may be. The importance of belief and family in her path. Faith has always been the bedrock of Susan Boyle's life, providing the fortitude she's needed to overcome adversity. Her upbringing in a tight-knit Catholic household greatly influenced her values and the way she acted. The immense pressure of stardom washed over her, but her religion gave her strength and purpose. Through the ups and downs of her incredible journey, Susan found solace in prayer, a place where she could connect with something greater than herself. Her mother, who passed away a long time ago, had a major influence on her life. The strong bond Susan had with her mother, who was always there to bolster her spirits, is something Susan often discusses. Susan was able to find stability despite her difficult circumstances because of her mother's unending love and support. Though the loss of her mother came as a devastating blow, Susan finds herself overwhelmed with gratitude whenever she thinks of the bond she had with her. She learned the importance of love, compassion, and authenticity from this experience. Instead of seeking celebrity, she has found true joy via genuine friendships and being true to her origins, as these individuals have reminded her. She owes her success and the way she views life to these individuals. Optimistic about the future, Susan Boyle has a lot of great plans for her career and personal life, so that her musical career may continue. She intends to release new CDs that represent her development and life experiences. She vowed to live a life that was both balanced and healthy. As she makes her way through the music industry, Susan is cognizant of the need of taking care of herself and plans to prioritize her health and fitness. Beyond her professional life, Susan aspires to motivate those who have overcome adversity. Her words of encouragement touch people deeply, inspiring them to face obstacles head-on and keep going until they achieve their dreams. Susan hopes to encourage and inspire those who may feel unappreciated by sharing her story via music. Regardless of the challenges they face, she will encourage them that they can still shine. Susan Boyle reflects on her incredible journey in her really moving revelation. By being true to herself and accepting her history, she encourages many to follow their passions and achieve their goals in life. Subscribing and like will bring you more.